All right. Hello, everyone. Continuing on with the third live stream today. I've got a little bit of like some head fog here, so this may not be a super long stream. What I want to do today though is I want to smoke test it. So I did a little work off stream. Let me go back and kind of just show what I've done, because so far everything that I've done has been on stream. So we're an hour and a half invested in this. I probably put 30-40 minutes into it off stream yesterday. So let me catch you up so that way, if you are following along with this whole thing, you see everything. So what I did was basically I just backfilled the test. So the dependencies thing, and what else did we write yesterday? The dependencies and then the check requirements. So I backfilled tests for those. So basically on dependencies, I just kind of changed this around so it was actually easier to test. So I just moved the comment to the top. I'm always going to leave the comment about running npx playwright install. But I did end up adding the check to see if package.json exists, and then if so, go ahead and add that dependency. So I just kind of inverted the logic a little bit to be more guard claused instead of nested code. That's just kind of like a big base code thing for me. Like I fundamentally feel like that code all top level is far more readable than like, indent, and kind of keeping track, of that mental stack of code. So as far as the tests go, I've demonstrated this before, but we'll just kind of look at one of them. It returns if no dependencies. So basically, the shift code base is just a PHP library. It's not a Laravel application. As such, I don't have access to like Laravel's really nice testing layer, right? To like make an HTTP test and call into the application and fake things out and all those fun things. But I mentioned that shift itself is a facade. So probably like 3 or 4 years ago now, Jess Archer actually did some contract work for me. We worked together on Shift, and one of the things that we built together was this testing layer. And this testing layer, basically we can see here, it all kind of starts with this fake project. And what this allows me to do is set up test fixtures in like a test runtime thing. Think of it much like if you do storage fake, it makes like a storage framework tests or testing kind of folder and puts stuff in there like for runtime. So that's exactly kind of what this does. It mimics kind of that approach. It fakes a project where you say, okay, for the Dusk converter, give it a composer.json file that's empty in this case. And then I call subject perform, task perform, and then we basically say like, hey, that file didn't change, no comments were left, and no logs were made. Otherwise, it's like it returns if pest v4, same thing. We actually give it a fixture in this case where Composer has PHP pest v4, right, or caret 4. And then finally for that, it throws an exception if the dependency is 3.2, a log was called, it was an unmet shift requirement, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's basically kind of the testing layer. So I backfilled the tests for check requirements, copy tests, and the dependencies tests. So all the things we wrote yesterday, I just backfilled tests for. So it's all the work I did off stream. Again, probably 30-45 minutes to kind of get all this going, add all these different fixtures. We can see here the fixtures are just standard files you would expect kind of in the application. A little bit streamlined, but the point is this is kind of a real world require dev section of a composer JSON file. It gets loaded in to pretend it's a project, and then Shift just runs as it actually would. So much like the Laravel testing layer, it is a much more, on the spectrum, it leans far more on the integration style of a test than it does a unit test. I'm not faking things out. I'm not necessarily mocking things beyond the log facade. It's actually running against the file system, finding files, manipulating them, and then putting them back, and then verifying them. So anyway, and again, as far as actual code changes from yesterday, just kind of inverted this to be more of a guard clause nature. So it was just a bit easier to test. So that's everything from yesterday. I think what we left off with yesterday, if we get back into the code, is we kind of determined that we could probably leverage the pest converter. So jumping right in, let's go to the pest converter. I feel like let's just take this segment. We determined that like this segment kind of converts the test cases and then leaves the commit. So let's take this minus the comment and let's kind of dump this in right here and take that out, right? So let's see. Let's kind of review this for a second. So in copy test, what we did is we said, okay, it's got to be test browser. If it doesn't find any test in those testing paths, then it's going to say no Dusk test found and return, and everything's going to play on, but it's not actually going to convert anything other than, so it's, this shift would really just end up like bumping your dependencies and telling you how to install it. That's fine. I mean, again, you're the developer, you're the customer, you chose to run this if you may not have needed so. But if someone ran it and that happened and, you know, they did actually have Dusk test, well, at least I'm going to have this little comment in the log that lets me know, oh, well, shift didn't find any, so tell me about your project structure. You know, maybe they put them in a different place, or maybe they don't have the test extension. So again, something unconventional, I can make adjustments and get it rerun. So the point here, the main point here though, is that we're going to end up finding any class which matches what we believe to be a test case, a conventional test case. It ends in .test.php. It's a final, potentially a final class which extends something else, some other test case, and then we give it a .pest extension. That's the critical piece here. We're going to give it the .pest extension because now all of these other things simply just find .pest. That should that should be enough to kind of limit the scope of these other things. So lifecycle method finds .pest, the test methods find .pest. This will actually look in data providers. So this shared data providers, this may need some work because it's looking for where these get built up, so that the data providers might get built up elsewhere in a task. So I'm going to have to figure that part out. It's not going to do anything right now, right? So if we go to helper methods, again, .pest, that should be fine. Class to script, .pest, and then replace originals. That's just basically going to take all the .pest extensions and just put them right back to same file location, but without the pest extension. So the point here is that we should be in a place, miscellaneous does nothing, it won't throw any exceptions, and then under development it's just going to leave this comment that's like, hey, this shift is still being worked on, let me know what broke, like please give me feedback. Because we are now, all of these tasks are tested individually, right? They're tested in that kind of integration-y style test that we looked at in isolation. But to see all this work as a unit, it's going to be a lot easier just to run this shift. So hopefully this shift is in a place where it can just be run. The easiest way to do that is just to push it up to the server and run it. So let's do that. That's the whole smoke test, right? So to do that, I just realized to do that, I'm going to attempt not to leak so many things on today's stream. So let's see here. How could we do this? I probably need to get my laptop. I probably need to go get my laptop, which is in the other room. So I'm going to do a streaming faux pas. I'm going to step away from the camera for like 20 seconds and go get my laptop so we can deploy this. Before I do that though, let's go ahead and add this stuff up, right? Oops. Well, let's see what we have. So we've only added, hello people. we've only added stuff to here. Okay, so we've added the stuff that should convert to Dusk, or sorry, to Pest, okay? So let's do git whip, let's push this up, I'll pull it down on the laptop, I'll deploy it, and I should be able, from the laptop, to run it. That way I don't leak anything on screen here. Okay, I'm hearing some chat. Let's see what's in the chat. Hey Adrian, how's it going? Jeffrey, what's up? Josh, what are we smoking? We're gonna smoke test the new Laravel Dusk to Pest Browser Test converter. Hey Mateus, what's going on? Adrian, did you catch also Dusk tests that are already written in Pest? That's a good point. Currently, the way we copy these tests over, it wouldn't find anything. It just wouldn't find anything. If they were already Pest, it wouldn't find anything because they wouldn't be in the class-based structure that copy test looks for. So all of this block would just end up getting skipped. And then when we start to run the stuff for Convert API, it would, theoretically, it would work from there. So you're still going to get something from this shift. If you're already Pest, you just don't have to worry about the Pest conversion part. So did I catch that? No. Does it matter though? No. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, it really shouldn't matter, I don't think. Because yeah, at this point in time, this chunk of tasks is basically to normalize your Dusk test, to normalize them into Pest. If they're already Pest, then these tasks just get skipped, which is fine. You're still going to get the value of, again, adding the dependencies, converting the API. That's kind of the main piece. It's just, of course, by nature, you have to be Pest. So you're getting a little bit more if, it's doing a bit more automation if you are PHP unit tests, but it still has a value, of course, even if not, because it'll just kind of pick up from here, right? So this part will kind of get skipped because nothing will get found. Nothing will have a declaration of final class, so nothing gets pushed over, and therefore nothing gets picked up by the following tasks. So, yeah, that's a good point though. Your Dusk test could already be written, using Pest syntax. Cool. Okay. I still need to go get my laptop, so let me go do that. Apologies. Okay, laptop. Cool, so we need to deploy. It's easier for me to deploy from the laptop. There's a couple reasons for that. One, the Shift code base itself, as we've kind of seen in previous streams, has kind of up-to-date resources. It has, they're not fixtures, they're just a lot of files. I'll just show you. There's a lot of files underneath like this resource that gets expanded, right? These like expanded structures and patches. And those are like, I wouldn't say they're ever changing, but they're a lot to bring down. And because of that, my laptop's pretty much always the one that's up to date. The other reason too is, to that point, I'm always using my laptop. So the latest keys and and 2FA and all that stuff. I'm pretty much always just working from my laptop. So all that is to say, it's easier for me to deploy from the laptop because that's where I've been deploying instead of from here. And Shift, again, is a very old code base, and it's not a Laravel application, so it's not like I'm deploying through Forge or Cloud or anything like that. This just deploys straight to workers through like some old school some old school shell commands, which is really all Forge is doing on deploy anyway. So, all right, let me just chill out about that for a second. Okay, so on the laptop, let me check out which branch are we? We are the Pest Browser Test, and we pushed everything up. Okay, cool. So we'll say, whoops. So we'll say git check out Pest Browser Tests, git pull to get what's on here through GitHub, and then I'll do sh deploy, a little shell script that'll remote into the servers, move the files, bring things over, propagate that to workers. It doesn't take that long. It takes me longer to say it than it does to deploy it. So again, all pretty quick. And then let me just from here, from again the laptop to not leak anything, let me just straight run. I can execute, again, this is a PHP library. So underneath, what's happening is when I run, if I go out to like laravelshift.com and I'm on my dashboard and I run a shift and it's running here, right? So like this shift, for example. When this runs, it gets picked up by a job, it gets put on the queue. Sorry, when you purchase, it gets put on the queue. It's a, perform shift job that gets picked up by one of the workers. That pulls the information it needs from the database, the shift, the SKU, your token, things like that. It pushes it down into the environment, isolated to that worker, and effectively just runs PHP shift and passes the stuff as arguments and or sets it for that process's environment variables, right? Any sensitive stuff is just in that environment variable. So I can mimic that is the point. I can mimic that by just running the PHP command directly with all of the stuff and then exporting whatever needs to be an environment variable. So I can just run it straight from the command line without going through the UI, since I don't have like the new Dusk converter in the database here, and it's not like a product record in the table. Like if I go over here to run shift, like I'm not going to be able to choose Dusk converter right now. So I can get around that by just passing that DC SKU directly to the command line. So let me go back to recent shifts. What I'm going to do is just steal one of these numbers. That'll allow me to regenerate the command using this thing's database record, which is the same project I want to shift anyway. We're going to run this against laravelshift.com because it has Dusk tests. So let me get to the right location. Basically, all I'm going to do is I've got a little artisan command in this code base, the laravelshift.com code base, and I can say shift dump command, and I pass it the shift number, in this case 153410. And what that does is it outputs, artisan. It's like, can't find artisan. Well, I spelled it wrong. Okay, so that outputs all of the command that I need. So I'm basically going to copy that, but instead of the SKU being 12, in this case, the Laravel 12 shift, we'll change it, or I'll change it to DC for the Dusk converter. Hit enter. Smoke test already failed. Okay. Uncaught error, find in argument 2 must be of type of array, string given. Okay, find in files, copy tests. Okay, copy tests, line, what line are you? Copy test line 15, okay. Smoke test failed. Smoke test failed. It exploded. It exploded with an exception. Okay, copy test line 15. Okay. Okay, I hard coded this. If we look at find in files, the signature expects it to be null or a array of strings. I just set it to a string. Whoops. All right, let's fix that. So let's just turn this into an array of paths. This in the pest converter, this was a method that was called that found things, and so it must have returned an array. So when I was quickly hacking on it yesterday, I didn't match up the method signatures correctly. So let's do the dance. Let's do get add, get whip, get push. We'll go back over to the laptop, get pull. Give it a second. We'll do sh deploy again. That should be pretty quick because it should just have only one change. Now again, it doesn't do git on the server. Again, it actually will bundle. The Shift project gets bundled. Again, that's why it's a little easier from the laptop because it has the most recent bundle. I'd have to rebuild all the assets here on the iMac, and that takes like 20 minutes. So that's why we're again deploying from the Mac. But it's also the get pull, get pulled, get push, get pull dance is because it bundles this up and then pushes it out as a package to each one of the workers. So again, a little more insight into how Shift, the engine, the library of Shift actually runs. Okay, so let's go back to one of the workers. I'll hit enter to rerun the command. Okay, it's running. Oh, we got a failure. That branch for the Laravel 12 shift already exists. Okay, no problem. We can get around that. We can get around that real quick. All right, let me change this. We'll call this like smoke test. We'll just give it a different branch name. It ran though. It ran and tried to push a. Okay, we got a PR. We got a PR. Smoke test passed. Okay, let's go. Let's just go out here because it's easy. Let's go to pull request. There it is. There it is. Dusk to Pest Browser Tests converter. Okay, so here's the PR. Smoke test pass. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And one tiny change, and it actually is running. So we're cooking here. We're cooking. All right, let's see what it looks like. Now again, this is a smoke test. This is just to see that it doesn't explode, right? It's just to see that it's actually doing what we expect. It's not complete. There's a lot of refinement that needs to happen here. What we're really seeing is A, did it actually send me a PR? Yes, awesome, success. And then B, how well did like this bunch of tasks that we're just copying, we haven't done any modification here, that we're just copying over, how well did that actually do, right? So let's kind of just scroll through this a little bit. Okay, so this pull request includes changes for converting your Laravel Dusk tests to Pest Browser Tests. Okay. Feel free to commit any changes, blah, 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 blah. NPM up. Is NPM update a command? I feel like NPM update's not really like, I think it works, but like it doesn't behave the same way as Composer update, I think. Anyway. So we have add pest browser testing dependencies. That's a little bit long. That could probably just be called like add dependencies. For the context of this PR, I think this could just be called add dependencies. I'm gonna fix that. Okay, and then we have convert test cases. All right, so pest browser testing is built on top of Playwright. That could be a link. I think that could be a link. Just again, it's educational. While Shift added this as an npm dependency, you will need to run npx playwright install to install the necessary drivers within your local environment. To install the necessary drivers. That could probably be like less technical. Yeah, okay. Shift found external data providers in your PHP unit test suite. These were converted to shared data sets in Pest. Nice. I don't know if that actually did that or not. Okay, we got some helper methods. Cool. Okay, so it's doing stuff. It's doing stuff. I do have helper methods here. And then here it goes. The shift is still being replied. Please report. Yeah, send me an email. Okay, cool. I'm hearing some chat. Before we look at the actual changes, let me check the chat. Nice. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was pretty good. I'm kind of excited about that. Yeah, again, good stuff. Okay, let's get in here. Let's get in here. Now, again, we've kind of done nothing, so I don't know what we're going to see here. This could be all messed up. It probably will be all messed up. But I'm hoping it's messed up in a way that's like, oh yeah, I need to add these 2 or 3 tasks. Let's find out. Okay, so we dropped Dusk. Awesome. We added Pest 4. Ooh. I'm not positive. I'll need to check. And maybe Nuno's in the audience. He was for a minute yesterday. I think maybe Pest 4 requires PHP Unit 12, I think. So, have to keep that in the back of the mind. But this looks good. This looks good. It added Pest v4. I didn't have Pest before, so it added it. Nice. And then it dropped in this Pest plugin browser. Nice. And then it added this playwright test stuff. Okay, nice. Okay. All right. Okay, what did it do here? Okay. Okay, so the namespace and the use statement. The namespace and the use statement, the namespace and some of the imports are still here. That kind of makes sense. If we go back, I'm gonna nitpick this, I think, with the rest of the stream, and then I think I'll fix it. We'll fix it tomorrow. If we go back to copy tests, when I was first looking at this, there was some header manipulation that was happening in copy tests. And I took it out because I kind of didn't understand why a task name copy test was changing the imports. But if we go look at the original, I left the original alone. If we go look at the pest converter copy test, we'll see what I'm talking about. And what it does is it basically takes out the entire header between the namespace and then PHP framework attributes, because you're not going to apply any of those attributes to pest tests, because again, they're written as functions, they're not classes, and therefore they're not compatible with the PHP attributes. But what we're seeing here is that the attributes and the namespace and the general Dusk test that this extends got left in here. So that's kind of makes sense. That kind of makes sense that it's still in here. Okay, let's look at the actual test case here. Okay, so it killed all of these. Did it inline them? No. Maybe they just weren't needed. It's interesting that it didn't turn these into uses. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's see here. Okay, so it did wrap these. It wrapped these pretty well, actually. What it didn't do was it didn't remove the final bit of the class. So we'll have to see which task is missing that actually removes kind of the remaining class skeleton. And then, it makes sense that it didn't get rid of the namespace and the attributes. That makes sense. What's interesting is where did these go, right? I guess they got left here. This all just got left here, which is fine, I suppose. Okay, so anyway, what's down here at the bottom? Let's look at some more of these. So yeah, it's actually not removing the final skeleton. But it did convert these. Okay, here's data sets. So it did a good job of converting data sets. That's nice. It's doing it. It's doing it. Again, I just copied this over from the pest converter, so like this is pretty successful in my mind. The fact that it's not getting rid of some of these top things kind of makes sense because I didn't kill that header, which might have caused a downstream issue. So what is this? Shared? I think this just gets added by default we could probably get rid of that. And again, maybe the pest converter does. So we have some data sets here. We got some other stuff. Okay. Yeah, so like, this is pretty good. Let's go back to the comments. I want to check. What's this subscription test? Let's just go look at this in the actual code base. I just want to see what's in subscription test that's like a helper method. Is it just a private method? Yeah, okay. It's just this. Which could just be a function. And I think that's what the pest converter does. Okay, let me check the chat, and then let me check the chat and let's see if we can figure out that header issue. Because if that header issue and removing of the class is gone, then like we're good. Like this is working up to how much we've built. Adrian, PHP Unit 12, yes. Yes, okay, I'll have to look at that. I technically don't have a PHP Unit 12 shift. I typically make those for free. So maybe that's something else I'll end up building as part of this. Wouldn't it be easier to run the PHP unit to pest converter and then the Dusk to pest? That's kind of up to you. I talked about that in the very first stream. The goal here is to not enforce that your entire test suite needs to be pest. That's not the goal here. The only reason I'm actually willing to build this shift, because honestly, I don't even use pest. The only reason I'm willing to build this, I mentioned this again in the first stream, two reasons. One, I think Dusk, I've had a lot of woes with Dusk, and I've been relatively public about that on Twitter. I think Nuno played into that in his Laracon US talk. So, secondly though, you can run PHP unit and pest together, and the fact that Dusk already runs separately as its own test suite anyway means that you have separation. So what I don't want this shift to do is make you use pest everywhere. That's not the goal. If you want to do that, then you can either use the pest converter to convert the rest of your test suite. You can use Drift, which is their built-in tool. That's up to you. I don't want this shift to be so opinionated in the fact that everything has to be pest now. So I'm just going to isolate it to the test browser, the conventional Dusk tests. That's all I'm going to convert, because this can all run side by side and you were already running your Dusk tests separately anyway. Anyway. Mateus, not related to browser testing, but on the PHP unit pest converter, could Shift tweak this calls to use the pest function approach like this acting? Yes. Yeah. That is all still remaining to do. And that is, if we go back, again, this is incomplete. The smoke test is just to see that the PR was made and like how far it got. That's this. The convert API is where we actually need to go in and say, okay, this visit, is not that, it's just visit now. This acting as is, visit acting as and all that kind of stuff. That's the convert API. That's the big piece here, right? That's the main piece. This is, again, just kind of a bonus that we're converting you to pest. As Adrian said, you might already be running pest, in which case this doesn't need to do anything. Okay, what I want to figure out are two things. Let's just kind of map this out, and then I'll probably end here today while I kind of gather my thoughts on how we want to do this. And I might go back and update this in the pest converter too. So it's kind of like, who needs to do this? I'm going to think on that. But anyway, we need to finish removing headers. All right, and then, the skeleton is still there. So the class skeleton is still there. Okay, so the removing header things, that's fine. I know that I took that out of copy test. So probably what needs to happen is I just need to build like another thing that says like, streamline headers or something, or streamline file header or something like that. And like make that be part of pest and then take it out of copy test. And that way it's all lined up. But let's go back to the pest converter real quick. Wherever that was, pest converter. There it is. What actually removes It's got to be in this class to script. Check inheritance, track uses, check trait. Okay, so it's checking a bunch of stuff. What actually removes the class? These are pretty big. This tests Laravel. Okay, yeah, it figures out. Okay. Class to script. Okay. I would kind of, like by name, I would expect this class to script to do what I think it should do. Check inheritance, check trait, check doc block, inject uses. So it's definitely doing this, right? Because it's converting the uses. And then it removes those in the contents. Okay. All of this is by reference. So it's updating contents in line. Where does it actually remove the class? Let's see if there's a, I want to see if there's any test fixtures for class. Sometimes it's easier to look at the test fixtures. There are. Okay, let's go look at this basic basic class stub pest. What is the... Nothing. Okay, interesting. Where's my water? What is this really saying? It's saying that that becomes this. That can't be right. What does this become? Data set. Oh, these are all, okay. So where's the test assertion? That's all that's left. So what uses basic test stub? Basic test. This uses basic class. Complex class. What's complex class? Trying to get a real... Okay, these don't have any test methods in them. So something else must be removing that. This is like analyzing the class and then bringing over what it needs. This stuff. This is like already here. It's kind of strange. Yeah, the compounding nature of these tasks aren't very common inside of the Shift code base, so like seeing how they all work together is kind of bending my mind right now. Let's see. So we share uses. What else might it be? Maybe there's something a little more obvious than this. Let's bring back the pest converter again. Replace originals. This just simply moves files. So again, from a symmetry perspective, copy should just copy files as far as the file system is concerned, and then replace originals should just put them back. So again, copy test should not be doing any kind of like header stuff. Okay, remove global import. So what does this do? It finds any PHP file in there that matches. So anything with still a namespace, it won't. Remove okay, so this is why the additional use statements are not getting cleaned up. This is really just for functions, but this makes sense why those other use statements weren't actually getting cleaned up. Because of this. Because I don't kill the namespace header. So that answers that question. The expectations are where we actually move to the expectation API. Optimize uses, goes through anything that's it or test, and this does more craziness with, okay, this figures out all the things that could be globally a global use statement and puts it in your test pests. So again, I probably don't need to do that, I don't think. PHP method signatures, what's this? Why would I do this? I don't know why I do that, to be honest. What does test runner do? Cleanup. Oh, okay, remove, okay. So I think what my guess is, honestly, my gut, I don't think we have a clear answer, but my gut, if we go back to Dusk converter, my gut is that if I went back to removing the headers, this would probably all just work. There's something in one of these that's not finalizing the removing of that class because it still contains some stuff that it doesn't expect, and its shift is kind of programmed to be cautious, right? Unlike AI that's like, here it is and it works. Shift is more like, I don't think I can do that, so here's a comment on your PR for you to do it. So yeah, I think that's what's happening here. I bet you if I broke out the task to remove, you know, the PHP unit headers, this would all just kind of work. Yeah. So, I don't think I'll build that on stream. We're already at 40 minutes, and like I said, I'm a little bit, my head's a little bit foggy today, so I think I'm gonna call it here. We have that code, so I will extract this into a task that is used by both the Pest converter and the Dusk converter, and I'm gonna rerun this. And if it gets us a lot farther down the road, then that's where I'll pick things up tomorrow. So basically, I'll get this in a place where this PR is rerun, and where is this? Yeah. I'll get this as a place where I can rerun this PR and it doesn't leave, you know, this stuff. I'll get it where that stuff's gone. And I think if I remove the headers, if I spend 10 minutes and remove these headers, like, it'll work. But I could be wrong about that, and I don't think that makes for good content on a stream. So I'll rerun this. We'll have it where it's just, you know, the script-esque functional pest kind of style, and then our focus will be basically this, you know, cleaning up this code, right? That's kind of that's the big piece. That's actually the automation we need, right? Where it's just all this browser-esque stuff gets kind of unwrapped. So that'll be the next big piece. So we'll focus on, I'll try to get it to where we can focus on working on that code tomorrow. And again, that will take some time and research. I don't know what all of the one-to-one ratios are. So we'll kind of hack at this where we kind of take some first naive passes where we remove this and we figure out what this, you know, subname is and unwrap that and all these kinds of things, right? So I kind of have to refamiliarize. These Dusk tests are here. I've never updated them from when I first wrote them years ago. So I kind of have to remind myself, like, I guess everything is wrapped in this browse. So this is going to be some interesting. We're going to have to parse, like, the browse method on this and then take its contents and, you know, unpack that and then basically learn what that variable name is to then, you know, remove those segments to know our browser chain. It's going to be interesting. I do some interesting stuff inside of here. I think this git login test maybe, nope. What is it? I think the shift filter test. Yeah, this shift filter test really pushes the boundaries of kind of Dusk, and it's doing some things like these named selectors that are available inside of Dusk. Like, you can name elements and define them elsewhere in the Dusk configuration. So the point is, if I can get this Dusk converter working for the laravelShift.com Dusk test, you know, I think it's going to be a really good indication of it being able to work for again, 80% or more of Dusk projects, because I do some very specific Dusk and even Selenium things here. So, you know, being able to flag those and convert those and stuff, I think this is going to be a really good test. So anyway, we will work on those pieces tomorrow and probably into next week. So thanks everybody for joining live. I'll get this part cleaned up and we'll carry on tomorrow.